Howdy folks, Timber Drifter here. It's turned into a nice warm day after a very cold morning. Actually had to fire up the wood stove this morning. It's pretty windy, so I'm hoping the sound quality will be alright on the video. I've got the camera kind of hidden behind a couple of things. Hope it blocks the wind. But I'm just working in the shop today, trying to make progress on some knives I've been making. Which is kind of fitting. I've been playing with knives and working on knives quite a bit lately. And I got a box in the mail from a guy that I chat with on Instagram. About as much as I chat with anybody. riverxwalker is the name, all one word, on Instagram. Mostly we send pictures or chat about knives, a little bit about pipe stuff. He's kind of into seems to be into the sort of classic American outdoorsmanship situation, woodcraft, and very interested in knives and has quite a bit of knowledge in that area. And he let me know he was sending me a package a few days ago. And it came last night. And because I was been doing tree work the last couple of days, particularly difficult jobs, and I sort of felt like I got ran over by a herd of horses this morning when I got up. So I'm really just now getting around, and it's the middle of the day. But before I get into that box, I'm enjoying a very nice Chamois pebble grain with some Count Pulaski. What name should I use? Ned Mudd was, I think, his last incarnation on YouTube. And unless he's popped up another channel since then, I don't think he's on YouTube anymore. But he'd sent me this pipe and this tobacco and some other really nice stuff, including the camera mount that I'm using, back in July, and that was one of the videos that I had to delete. So I'll go over that stuff another time. But awesome pipe, great tobacco. So, because I'm going to open this box from another knife nut, I can't just use any old blade. And plus it looks like it's got Gorilla Tape on it. So I thought about using this one, which is fun. It's just a big, cheap, Chinese-made assisted opening knife that I took apart and cleaned up some of the rough edges here and there and Loctited the screws. But I'm not going to use that knife, fun as it is. Riverwalker and I both have a preference for marbles knives. So this is one of my absolute favorite knives. Marbles Expert, that I picked up last year and used a lot this last winter. Pretty great knife. Well, it fits my hand well, and the blade's a good size. And of all the marbles knife patterns, this one and the Woodcraft are my two favorite. And I don't currently have a Woodcraft. I've got a German copy of a Woodcraft that's not quite the quality of the marbles knives. So I've been looking to pick one of those up to go with this one. So the other thing I'll mention about this one was made, I think, in the late 40s, early 50s. It's got the Bakelite pommel on it. First time I ever saw one of these knives was a picture in a book, Camp and Trail Methods by E. Krebs. There's the picture. he described it as, I don't think he'd handled one, but he described it as having all the right characteristics for a good woods knife, and I'd have to agree with him. Although the one in the picture, the cross section of the blade shows it being a long hollow grind, long shallow hollow grind all the way from the spine, and this one's more of a convex. So it's not that great for cutting steaks, but when I say steaks, I mean slicing steaks out of a big chunk of meat. But pretty good for everything else. And some of the older ones I've seen do have that kind of shallow hollow grind to them. But anyway, this was the one I was able to get. So let's get into this box and see what we got here. Put the knife back in the sheath so it doesn't roll off the hood of my car and end up stuck in my foot. Alright. Like I say, I don't think this is probably pipe related due to the weight of the box. And just knowing he's a knife guy. Oh, various things in there. So... I'm not going to read what's on the back of that, but that's hilarious. And probably a good idea. So first thing we got here, birch bark, and that looks like fat wood. Although I don't recognize the grain pattern. Yeah. Nice. I'm going to actually just throw that right in the bottom of my haversack that I carry in the woods, because I used up the last of my tinder the other day. That'll work. I can set this over here so I'm not taking up the whole camera. Oh, nice. Yeah. I'll definitely use those. Excellent, thanks. That's I just use the little folding pocket notebooks, and they get, usually after about 2 or 3 weeks of carrying those, they're pretty torn up. Oh yeah. That is a marbles match. That is a real marbles match safe. Wow. That is cool. I've never had one of these. I had one of the cheap kind of Chinese made ones years ago, but so the way that it works, if you're not familiar with them, this is really neat. This one's obviously been used and carried quite a bit. That's cool. So you've got kind of a knurled surface here, and this is a tube, and a textured area at the top here, and you unscrew it by twisting this until it's free of the top, and then it folds open, and you put your matches in here. And you can always also use this surface to strike anywhere matches, although those are pretty hard to find these days, at least where I live. And there's a, I think it's a rubber pad right here on the inside of there that makes this sealable, so your matches don't get wet. That's awesome and very usable. I actually still use matches in the woods. That's cool. The LL Bean Guide to the Outdoors. Right away, that's interesting. I'm not from the Northeast, so LL Bean is kind of what do I say about that? I'm familiar with LL Bean from reading all the kind of historical camping and wood skills books that I have, and historical accounts and older books about guiding and all that stuff, but I didn't grow up with LL Bean, so it's kind of a newer thing to me. That's cool, yeah. Nice illustrations and lots of information. I'm sure I'll get into that. It's a neat book. Ooh. That's where the weight's coming from. So for just a fraction of a second there, without being able to see what I was grabbing, just reaching into the box, I thought there was a pistol in a soft case, which obviously this video wouldn't make it to YouTube if that's what was up. That's not what's going on. And of course, Riverwalker would know better than to be sending pistols through the mails and wouldn't do that anyway. But you never know about people. Anyway, that's a Duluth. This is a Duluth pack pouch. Very nice, and it's heavy. Right away I see a marbles knife in there. I'm not going to open that first. So here's a knife I don't have. It's a Duke Duke. I don't know much about these knives. That's a surprisingly snappy spring. I've never handled one of these before. It doesn't say it on here, but I'm pretty sure these are, well, I know the originals are made in France, and this looks like one of those. Very interesting knife. It's very similar to the German Mercator knife that I'm very fond of. In fact, I'm going to pause this and grab that knife out of my pack. Are we recording again? Yeah, okay. So there's the German. The old guys I knew when I was a kid called these cat knives because of the cat running on there, and possibly the Mercator name too, I don't know, but I like these. They're very thin and quite sturdy, and it is actually a lock blade, and it's a very similar folded metal construction to the Duke Duke. They bear some basic resemblance to each other, at least as far as construction goes. This is not a lock blade like this one, but it's got a surprisingly stiff spring. Seems to be flat ground or pretty close to it. That's a sturdy little knife with a very interesting blade shape. I know Riverwalker's pretty fond of these and has quite a few of them. It's kind of a general peasant's knife. I understand there's a lot of history with these, but I'm not familiar about it enough to talk about it. I'll have to do a bit of research. Awesome. So, marbles knife. I can't believe you sent me a marbles knife, man. And that is a woodcraft pattern. Or I'm pretty sure it is. With the Boy Scout of America stamp on the sheath. Original sheath in really nice shape. And that blade has very little or no wear on it. Wow. Most of these I find, they're pretty bellied out through here, and they're usually missing about that much of the tip from being sharpened off, and a few of them I found are about that thick, or that wide from being sharpened so much. Marbles Woodcraft. I'm going to have to do some research, or maybe you can just tell me what time period this knife is from. Very cool with the Boy Scouts of America stamp on the sheath. That is super nice. Man, I was just saying that's two of my favorite shapes in the marbles line, the Expert and the Woodcraft. I can't believe you sent me a woodcraft. I can't believe you sent me a marbles knife. That is awesome. Alright, I'm going to have to, since I'm making knives again, perhaps you'll see one in the mail one of these months. Alright, that's too nice, man. That's too nice. That's crazy. Well, I guess I'm going to stop looking for marbles woodcraft then. Okay, so this video is slightly pipe related. There are some pipe cleaners in the bag. And a couple of coins. This looks like a franc. Hope that wind isn't messing up the audio too much. $19.24. I know the camera won't focus on this stuff. It says 1 penny. I'm not familiar with this coin. I recognize the back of it, but not the front. I have to show those to my friend Ken, the coin nut, see what he has to say. Very cool. So the last thing in here is it's quite heavy. Oh shit, I know what that is. This video is going to end up pretty long too. But I got a good Wi-Fi signal right now, so I should be able to get it uploaded. I've only seen 2 of these. One was at a gun show in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And the other one was owned by a guy that when I was in my teens, I was doing mountain man reenactments. And he carried one of these, not as a period correct piece, but just it was in his kit of stuff. And the saw blade is intact on this one. So both of the ones I've seen, the saw blade was, the one at the gun show was snapped off about right here, and the one my old friend Ernie had was snapped off about right there, and he'd modified it into a carving blade. So while I'm talking here, I'm trying to remember what these were called. It's made by Colonial in Providence, Rhode Island. It's a World War II era. I think they were all military issue. I don't know without looking this up. But it's like a pilot survival knife. This is a hacksaw blade. It's not for sawing wood. The idea was that if you were in a downed plane, you could hammer this through the side of the fuselage and then use the saw to make an opening big enough to get yourself out. You know, so make the opening in the fuselage with the blade, and then the saw to cut an opening bigger. I think anyway. And I believe these were, what the hell did they call them? A giant jack, I think, is the common name for them. I think. I might be wrong about that. This is awesome. So this is a pretty awesome package. I'm very surprised, and cool stuff. Cool stuff. Marbles knives, MagSafe, giant pocket knife. I mean, you saw the one I pulled out earlier. I like huge folding knives. The other one I'm carrying is a Schrade. What the hell is this one? 225H. Big 2-blade folder. Nowhere near as sturdy as this one. I'm going to pause the camera again and grab something else out of my backpack. So this knife, I've never got to handle one of these enough to be familiar with it, but I guess I'm going to now. So they've got the blade is actually liner lock, which is a good idea to have a locking blade if you're going to be jamming something through the side of an airplane, so it doesn't fold up on you. But what this knife instantly reminds me of is the 225Q. It's just hell for stout, as my old friend Ernie would have said. Super thick, overbuilt. Probably couldn't break it if you tried, although it might be a little easier with the folding knife. This is one of my favorite knives. Also World War II issue. And thank you, riverxwalker. Awesome stuff. I don't know how I'm gonna hook you back up with as much cool stuff, but we'll see. We'll see what I can do. So just finish this up quick. My old friend Ernie and Ed, the two guys that I hung out with a lot when I was doing reenactments when I was a teenager. They're the guys that taught me how to make moccasins and throw a tomahawk and pan fry a steak over a fire and drink whiskey. Old Ernie carried one of these that he'd put an antler handle on. And they were, both of those guys were Korean War vets and had spent a lot of time in the woods, and both of them had been married several times and done a lot of living. They both lived down in Oklahoma. Ernie's long dead, and I imagine Ed is too by now. But I learned a lot from those guys, and we talked about blades a lot. And Ernie used to make knives here and there, but he also used to just modify a lot of older knives. And like I said, he had one of these in his kit, which I wasn't really allowed to handle very much. He let me see it once. But like I say, his was snapped off, and he'd carved it into a, or he'd remanufactured it into a carving knife. Stuff reminds me of Ernie. But hell for stout, that's what he referred to these blades as. Hell for stout. That's awesome. Alright, man. I'm going to turn this off, and this will probably take all day to upload, I imagine. So, y'all take care. Go outside.